hear the kids yelling like far away, and I see the kids looking at me, and I'm just, that was so real.
The movie kicks off with a married couple, David and Alexis, waking up in their bedroom. Alexis has just had a disturbing dream about their 2 children, which leaves her feeling uneasy. Noticing his wife's distress, David reassures her that it was nothing more than a bad dream. Just as they are about to relax, their daughter bursts into the room, excitedly reminding them to get ready for an important family gathering. Alexis' niece is turning 15, and the family is celebrating this milestone. In their culture, a girl's 15th birthday is a major event, marking her transition into young adulthood. After a quick breakfast with his family, David heads out to work at an electronics store where he employs his cousin, Lupe. However, she isn't exactly the most responsible employee. She constantly throws wild parties at the shop, leaving behind a mess. David has warned her multiple times that she could lose her job, but she doesn't take his threats seriously. Not long after, David's close friend and work partner, Creeper, shows up. The two of them are inseparable, handling their business together. Just as they are about to leave, they are approached by Victor, a gangster who has recently climbed the ranks. Despite his new leadership role, Victor shows nothing but deference towards David and Creeper, knowing full well that they're the most feared figures in the area. Victor explains that his gang has been struggling with harassment from rival groups and asks David and Creeper for help in dealing with the issue. He then hands over the required payment, a tax that local gangs must pay to keep their businesses running smoothly. David reminds Victor that all gangs operating in their territory must contribute 30% of their earnings every month. As tax collectors, David and Creeper enforce these payments on behalf of their boss, Wizard, a powerful crime lord who runs the operation from prison. If any gang dares to defy them, they are swiftly dealt with violently. Later, the two men visit David's uncle, Lewis, to verify that Victor's payment has been recorded. While Wizard remains incarcerated, Lewis temporarily manages the business, setting payment schedules and overseeing tax collections. It is David and Creeper's job to make sure every gang in the city pays up. During their rounds, David often talks about his happy family life, teasing Creeper about still being single despite his age. Creeper, however, doesn't seem interested in settling down, no matter how often David tries to set him up with women. Eventually, they reach the headquarters of a gang and demand their share of the money. The gang members, visibly intimidated, quickly hand over the cash. David issues a stern warning, making it clear that they should stop messing with Victor's crew or they'll regret it. At another gang's hideout, David and Creeper witness a man being tortured. His crime? Sleeping with a gang member's girlfriend. David steps in, ordering the gang to release the man. He warns them that such petty disputes could escalate into an all-out gang war, which would only hurt business. The gang members see reason and follow his command. To prevent further trouble, David and Creeper personally escort the man back to his gang, the Bloods, and meet their leader, Bone. David explains that the situation was a personal matter, not a business-related issue that should cause conflict between the gangs. Bone appreciates the intervention, acknowledging that a pointless war would only bring massive losses. Their next stop is a gangster who runs an illegal operation behind the facade of a clothing store. The moment David and Creeper walk in, the man scrambles to hand over his dues. However, he makes an offhand remark that offends Creeper, who immediately pulls a gun on him. David quickly intervenes, defusing the situation before it gets out of hand. Shortly after, David receives a call from Alexis, who asks him to meet her at a clothing store. When he arrives, he finds out that she wants him to intimidate the shop owner into selling a dress to her niece. The girl has her heart set on that particular dress, but the owner refuses to sell it. Without hesitation, David steps in and uses his influence to ensure his niece gets what she wants. Satisfied, he returns to work with Creeper. Later that night, David and Alexis count the money they have collected. They immediately notice something is off. Victor's payment is short by $20,000. Furious, David decides to confront him right away. Despite Alexis' attempts to calm him down, he and Creeper head straight to Victor's house. When they arrive, Victor quickly orders his wife to retrieve the missing cash from the fridge. Just as David is about to pull the trigger on Victor for breaking the rules, Victor makes a desperate confession. He took the money to pay for his daughter's leukemia treatment. He even shows David pictures of his little girl receiving care in the hospital. As a father himself, David understands Victor's situation. Instead of taking the money back, he makes the unexpected decision to let Victor keep it. Without another word, he signals Creeper to leave with him, sparing Victor's life. On the way back home, David received a message from his uncle, instructing him to collect a hefty sum, $200,000, from a gangster named Venom. Without wasting any time, he and Creeper headed straight to Venom's hideout. When they arrived, a woman named Gata welcomed them and led them inside to meet Venom. As soon as they stepped in, Venom pulled out a thick stack of cash, seemingly ready to hand it over. But just as Creeper reached for it, Venom stopped him, making it clear that the money wasn't meant for them. Before they could react, a man named Conejo walked in and made a bold announcement. Venom would no longer be paying taxes to David's crew. From now on, every gangster in the West would report to him. David, realizing they were outnumbered by Conejo's heavily armed men, kept his cool and signaled Creeper to leave without causing a scene. As they drove off, Creeper was visibly frustrated, itching for a fight. He had been longing for some action, feeling like their job had become dull. But David urged him to stay patient and think strategically. Conejo wasn't just another thug. He was the ruthless leader of a powerful crime syndicate from the East. Later, David and Creeper met with Lewis to relay what had happened at Venom's place. Lewis acknowledged Conejo's reputation, explaining that gangsters in the East feared him because of his cruelty. Once, he had been loyal to Wizard, but after David's father was locked up, Conejo saw an opportunity to take over. David suggested eliminating Conejo before he gained more power, but Lewis hesitated. Instead, he proposed putting it to a vote whether they should declare war or try to strike a deal. David suspected Lewis was afraid of Conejo, but Lewis quickly shut him down, warning that if he weren't family, he would have already taken him out for doubting his authority. That night, David and Alexis hosted a grand party for Alexis' niece's birthday at their home. Lewis dropped by with surprising news. He had arranged a meeting with Conejo, who supposedly wanted to apologize and promised to leave the West alone. Relieved, David finally relaxed, enjoying the celebration and dancing with his wife. However, the peace didn't last long. Just before midnight, Gata showed up, telling David to check his phone and demanding he and Creeper come to a nightclub immediately. Once there, they met Conejo and Gata, but something was off. When David asked about his uncle, Conejo coldly revealed that he had killed Lewis. He even presented his severed head as proof. David's fury was barely contained, but he held himself back. Conejo then made an offer. He wanted David and Creeper to join his crew, promising them even greater profits. To seal the deal, he demanded David kiss the rings on his fingers as a sign of loyalty. David refused without hesitation, turning his back on Conejo and walking away with Creeper. Conejo took their rejection as a direct insult. The next day, David and Creeper gathered their loyal gang members to plan an attack on Conejo and his crew. But before they could execute their plan, Conejo's men struck first. Gata and Conejo's enforcers launched a surprise ambush, killing many of David's men. Amid the chaos, Creeper was captured while David barely escaped. Fearing for his family's safety, he rushed to pick up Alexis from work. On the way, David received a chilling video call. Gata was smashing Creeper's leg with a hammer, and then Conejo finished him off. David was enraged but powerless to intervene. He and Alexis hurried to pick up their children from school before heading to a hotel to hide. Alexis begged David to let go of revenge and take their family far away for a fresh start. David agreed, but said he had unfinished business to take care of first. He sent their children to his sister, Delia, for safety and then made a stop at Lupe's house. At Lupe's, he dug up a hidden stash of nearly $2 million, money from a robbery he and Creeper had pulled off years ago. Lupe, shocked by the revelation, asked where it came from. David simply stated it was his emergency escape plan. After gathering the cash, he rushed back to the hotel, only to be met with heartbreak. Alexis had been murdered. Overcome with grief, he soon received another devastating call. His children had been kidnapped. Conejo gave him 2 hours to show up with the money. With no other option, David sought help from Bone, the leader of the Bloods gang. He laid everything out. How Conejo had slaughtered his crew, murdered his wife, and taken his kids. Bone agreed to help, seeing Conejo as a threat to everyone. Together, they gathered their forces and stormed one of Conejo's drug houses, wiping out his men. They interrogated a survivor by dragging his face along the pavement from a moving car, forcing him to reveal the location of David's children before killing him. David Bone, and their gang reached the hideout and found the kids safe, guarded only by Kaneho's grandmother, who gave up Kaneho's location. They moved in swiftly. David stealthily took down a guard, while Bone eliminated 2 more. Inside, David faced Gata and killed her. Then he came face to face with Kaneho himself. A brutal fight broke out. At first, Kaneho overpowered David, wounding him badly. But in a last burst of strength, David turned the tables and killed Kaneho in a gruesome showdown. Bone, having survived the battle, helped David escape. As they regrouped, Bone offered to get medical attention for David's wounds, but David had something else in mind. He contacted Wizard, his father, and told him everything. Instead of sympathy, Wizard congratulated him, claiming David had now become the new ruler of the entire criminal underworld. But David wanted none of it. Rejecting his father's legacy, he hung up, choosing to walk away from the violent life he had once embraced.